Welcome, everyone. I'm Dan Lambert, and I serve this congregation as minister. Our progressive, welcoming, inclusive, and judgment-free congregation is a liberal religious community of diverse and free-thinking individuals. UUFCC is a spiritual community where reason and social justice matter. As people who learn, love, share, and serve together, we welcome all into our family. Each week, we begin our service by singing an invitation to gather together in this Zoom setting, even as we are scattered in many different locations. And I want to see you clap your hands and do the jazz hands when we sing today, because I've not seen you do that, and I'm very upset by that. So let's have some enthusiasm as we sing Enter, Rejoice, and Zoom in. That was awesome. Love the enthusiasm. We're going to have to keep working on that week after week. As we enter into our chalice lighting time, introduce to you our worship associate for today, Samara Michelson, and she has words for our chalice lighting.
So I just found out in preparation for today's service that there is an international UU chalice lighting group, and they write a chalice lighting once a month in different languages. So this one was written in French and then translated to 8 languages.
We can't hear you, Samara. I don't know why. Oop. And she'll be right back.
Her volume was really soft. This is one of those funny, awkward glitches we have sometimes.
Funny? Awkward? What?
Yeah, exactly. You were really, really faint.
Oh, that's funny. Good. All right, so I just added my external mic. Am I good now?
Oh, yes, you're so good.
Loud.
I'm so good. So I'll say what I said again. So there's an international chalice lighting group, and once a month they propose a new chalice reading to be read once in the month. And this one was written in French in Canada by Rev. Diane Rollert. Welcome hearts. Come hearts that are open and hearts that are closed by trials and sorrows, loss and misgivings. Come seekers searching for answers, for respite, or a space to unleash your joy. Here, all are welcome. No excuses are needed, nor explanations. Bring your whole heart and let it be touched as we light our chalice, the symbol of our faith. This moment belongs to each of us.
Thank you, Samara. And now I invite you to share in our affirmation as we light the chalice. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service is its law. This is our aspiration, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. And now I invite you to take a moment and light your own chalice there at home. Samara has opening words for us this morning.
Hello again. All right. So the opening words today are straight out of the UU world. I hope you've all had a chance to read the most recent issue. There's an interview with Dr. Glenn Thomas Rideout, and he's a musical minister, and you'll actually see him singing today. And he says in his interview, music, an expression of the ineffable, is essential to spirituality and worship. UUism is both starting to relinquish the centrality of intellectualism as the soul center. Oh, I'm going to say that again. That's complicated. UUism is both starting to relinquish the centrality of intellectualism as the soul center and trying to welcome emotionality and spiritual intuition into the center of the way we understand things. Right on top of that, there's a conversation about white supremacy, which places so much value on things like academics and science. Black and brown cultures especially tend to be so much more rooted in things like intuition and the value of feelings and the necessity of singing as an expression. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Samara. I could listen to a lot more of that. I think that's terrific. But for now, I'm going to enjoy this purple pinwheel, because today happens to be International Domestic Violence Awareness Day. October, in addition to being Breast Cancer Awareness Month, hence the pink beard, which someone pointed out to me, my color is fading a bit. It is the end of the month. But purple is also for domestic violence awareness. And so our local organization, the Center for Abuse and Rape Emergencies, the CARE Center, always sends us a couple of signs to put out and sends us a bunch of pinwheels. And if you happen to drive by the fellowship in the next week or two, you'll see these pinwheels out in the front yard by the road. And you're actually welcome to come and get one if you'd like. If you'd like one in your home, or maybe give some to neighbors or to your grandkids. And they work. And I'm a little bit obsessed. So that's kind of fun. But here's a thank you letter from CARE that I'd like to share. 2020 has been quite the year. COVID-19 has had an impact on our lives in a number of ways. There's been less. We see our loved ones less, travel less, eat out less, hug less, and have gone to church less. And there have been more masks, more distance, more online meetings, more loneliness, and sadly, more domestic violence. For those not aware, October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And we at the Center for Abuse and Rape Emergencies, better known as CARE, would like to thank you from the bottom of our hearts for joining in on our endeavor to bring awareness to our community, even through this pandemic. So they are an important partner for us. And if you keep track of the news at all, you know that it's true that domestic violence is up, substance abuse is up, domestic challenges are up. And so this is a very, very difficult time for a whole lot of reasons. I'd like to take time now to welcome those of you who might be new with us today. If you are a visitor and you're just popping in on occasion, or today is your first time with us, we absolutely want to say welcome. We're glad that you found a way to join us. Also a challenge during this COVID-19 time when we're only meeting on Zoom and not here in our sanctuary. If you are brand new, we'd love to know who you are and to say hello. So we invite you in our chat box that you'll find at the bottom of the Zoom screen if you're on a computer or a laptop, simply to put your name and where you're from and maybe why you decided to join us today, so that we can say hi to you and not do anything inappropriate with your information. Of course, we're not going to spam you with lots of emails, but we just want to say hi. So we invite you to do that, if you would please, at some point during the service, so we could say hi to you. And we certainly invite you to stick around after the service for our social hour as well. And we'll talk about that a little bit more at the end of the service. Our song for today that we're going to share is one that you might remember if you were with us in July. It comes from our UUA General Assembly virtual choir that was put together by people that do incredible technology things with the UUA General Assembly. This song is called Tomorrow. It was written specifically for this occasion, and the theme is all about talking about current events today, what's happening in the Unitarian Universalist world and our universe, and what do we need to know about, and what does that mean for us today and moving forward. So you'll find the words on your screen, and enjoy the song and sing along to the song Tomorrow at this time.
There will be better days. 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 Let the wave wash over. There will be better days. There will be better days. There will be better days. I am already under. There will be better days. Let the wave wash over. There will be better days. There will be better days. There will be better days. Let the wave wash over. There will be better days. There will be better days. Let the wave wash over. There will be better days. There will be better days. I am better days. There will be better days.
Wow. The message of that song is so important. There will be better days, and we work to make the days better. And let me just throw in this reminder: vote, vote, vote. Tell your friends to vote, tell your family to vote. Tess and I did our early voting yesterday, and it's encouraging to see the number of people that are already out voting. So that's just one way that we create better days. I'd also like to point out behind me, we have some nice October and Halloween decorations for the fall. Thank you to, I believe, Dennis and Helen and Debbie for coming in to do that. And you can't see quite everything because there's some things down low, but this is nice
We
to have
can't
some
see
seasonal
you.
decorations here. So thank you. Thank you to everyone who keeps us having some visual decorations there. Now we'd like to move to the member spotlight.
Your video's gone.
My video's gone. I can see it.
I can't, and nobody else.
Can nobody see my video anymore?
That is correct.
I have.
Stuck.
I'm stuck.
Yep.
That's weird because I can see it on me.
We can hear
Everybody
you
else?
though.
You can hear me.
Mhm.
Well, that's the only thing that really matters, because right now we're going to go to Tom Dooley, who is our member spotlight. And
Move your-
every congregation has a few people who do a lot of different things. And Tom is one of those folks for us. He's on the Art on the Wall committee. He takes care of our electronics and our audio visual system. He mows the yard. He does some maintenance around here. Tom is an incredibly valuable part of our congregation. So we're going to learn a little bit more about Tom today. So let's spotlight Tom and not spotlight the screen that you can't see.
You're muted, Tom.
How's that? Is that a little
Good.
better? So, as I was saying, good morning all. My name is Tom Dooley. For those who don't know me, I'm the guy that moved the microphone around in the sanctuary during the Sunday services. I'm here to tell you a little bit about myself and about the art committee and the audio visual system as it is and as we hope it will be in November. To begin with, as to art and electronics, at about my age of 11 years, I was already reproducing characters out of the Sunday comic strip, and then I just kept on going. And to about that same time, I built my own AM radio from a Radio Shack kit. And the result of that is that I have a degree in electrical engineering from Auburn University, and I'm an accomplished artist that had a broad media independent art show here on the wall of the sanctuary last September.
Tom, can I interrupt you for just a moment and ask you to move closer to your microphone, please?
A little closer to the mic, is that better?
There we go. Yeah, thanks.
In any case, did everybody get all that? I hope so. My continued interest in art has me on as a member of the art committee. And the art committee's primary concern is to try to keep art on the wall of the sanctuary always covered with interesting art from the local community, and once a year, art from the congregation. Prior to the COVID virus, we had a slate of artworks to display lined up through February of 2021. But with the virus, of course, all that had to be called off with hopes of rebuilding such a list after the virus has passed. In the meantime, we have produced the Dennis Shaw Art Show that you have access to on your website. We have also put out a call for pandemic art so that we can follow Dennis's art show with some lively and interesting art conceived during the shutdown. The deadline's passed, and we will just have to see what we can do with what has been sent to us. In the audio and visual arena, we continue to Zoom, but too, we are about to purchase some new equipment that will allow us to stream the Sunday service directly to the internet. Once we have that set up and have tested it, information will be sent out to all of those as to how you would connect to it. We hope to have that service working by November. If there are any questions about the art wall, contact any member of the art committee. And if there is anyone out there interested in working with the AV system, please contact me or Dan. Thank you very much.
So I'm sure no one is surprised who knows Tom that he deflected that time from talking so much about himself and used it to talk about all the different things that he's helping to be in charge of. He is a wonderful, humble person, and we are very, very honored to have him as part of our congregation. So thanks for all your work, Tom. You certainly could have talked a whole lot longer about your background, and we would have been certainly okay with that. At this time, we invite you to write items of joys and concern in our book of life, which we're using for our chat area at this time in Zoom. If you have something that's been fun and exciting, some great news you'd like to share, or if you have an illness for yourself or your family or friends, or a concern about something in the community or the neighborhood that you would like to share, this is the time to share those items in the book of life, which you use by going to the chat and just simply typing those things in. We'll play an instrumental for a minute or so and give you a chance to do that. And then we'll go into a moment of silence after that. So go ahead and write things in the Book of Life chat room at this time. Thank you all for sharing. I'd like to invite you to join us in a moment of silence. It's something that we simply don't do very often, and certainly not often enough in our lives. We're just going to sit silently for a minute. No talking, no music, no sound. Just to concentrate and recenter ourselves, a chance to lift up in your life the items that not only bring you joy, but the things that are weighing you down. And if you would just get rid of those during this minute, that is something that meditation can really help you do. So let's enter into a minute of silence at this time. Just a reminder that we are continuing to accept your offerings. Many of you are mailing those in, which is fantastic. Some of you are having automatic payments sent from your bank, or you're using the Venmo app on your smartphone, which is fantastic. And this is, I guess, the last Sunday to remind you that Ken Brennan has given us a second helping challenge this month. Remember that we are helping 3 different organizations who provide food to the community, some food banks. And Ken has said this month in October, he's willing to match what we give up to $2,500. So we could make that a $5,000 donation to these organizations. And I happened to have a conversation this past week with somebody who works with Meals on Wheels, and they were telling me just how important those donations are, and how much extra work and how many more people they're serving this time. So this money is really vital to those organizations. So we can turn our $2,500 into $5,000. and make sure that Ken doesn't eat for the entire month of November. Let's empty his bank account and get the $2,500 in so we can get that match maximized. Thank you so much for your continued giving. We are in good shape financially because of your generosity and your honoring of your pledges. So thank you for doing that. During our Sunday morning messages, I've spent the last 3 months or so discussing Unitarian Universalist history, going back 400 years to start with, and then moving forward, talking about different individuals and events, significant items that have happened that are important for us to know about as Unitarians and Universalists. But I can't really leave this topic without sharing some about what's happening in Unitarian Universalism today. There's a lot of issues that are causing some controversy, a lot of very exciting movement, some very positive things, and a lot of items that I think that as a congregation, it would be good for us to know about. My plan moving forward is to talk a whole lot more about what's happening in our denomination, because I believe as a congregation who said we are part of the Unitarian Universalist Association, that we should know what's happening, not just at our headquarters in Boston, but at congregations around the United States and around the world, the things that we're involved with, the work that we're doing. And so today I plan to just go through a lot of different items like that so that you're aware. Some of you will have a passion to connect with some of these. Some of you will know about many of them because I've talked about them before, other people have. And so we hope to find something that you feel like you want to learn more about or connect with. Obviously, the past several months, we've talked a lot about an initiative called UU the Vote. This is something that started over a year ago, and the idea for UU the Vote is to raise awareness about issues that matter to us as Unitarian Universalists. Their goals included something like registering a whole lot of new voters, influencing 1 million people to vote, which is really impressive for a denomination that only has about 100,000 members. And so the goal is to have 10 times more impact than we actually have members in the entire denomination. They've had a lot of activities online and via email. They've encouraged people to do phone banking, to write letters, to write postcards, to contact congressmen and senators, not just for Florida, but even for other states. They've organized people to do phone banking from Florida for South Carolina or from Arizona for Michigan. And so UU the Vote has done a lot of work. And it's not going to end on November 3rd when the vote is done. UU the Vote announced this week that they have initiatives and ideas for carrying into 2021 as well. So that has been a very exciting activity from Unitarian Universalism. Also, one of the key initiatives that has happened in the Unitarian Universalist universe is an activity known as decentering whiteness. This initiative started years ago, is emphasized today, and will continue for a long time. Decentering whiteness simply means that really since the beginning of religion, certainly Western religion, that white Caucasian males have been at the center of leadership and decision-making and activities with Unitarianism and Universalism carrying forward from Protestant Christianity. And even moving into the past few decades, Unitarian Universalism has been led by white males. And recently there's been an effort to say, you know, that's not really okay, because there's a lot of other folks out there who are not white, who are not male, who have important things that we can learn from. They have important messages for us to hear. And so there are a lot of different initiatives happening to help us decenter whiteness as UUs. This is something that I'm learning a lot about through my work with the Ministerial Fellowship Committee. The homework they've given me for the next month or so entirely focuses on decentering whiteness and doing a better job of that as a Unitarian Universalist minister. One of the organizations that maybe you've heard about that's certainly done a lot of work the past few years is called Black Lives of Unitarian Universalism, BLUU for short, or BLUE. as it's pronounced. One of the things you'll see the more you get involved with Unitarian Universalism is that organizations like to take advantage of the double U's to create acronyms that spell words. So this is BLUE. Black Lives of Unitarian Universalism was formed officially in the wake of several conversations among Black UUs, specifically at the July 2015 Movement for Black Lives, which was a conference that convened in Cleveland, Ohio. The BLUE organizing collective, as they're called now, is committed to a few different activities, including expanding the power and capacity of Black UUs within our faith and within our congregations, to providing support, information, and resources for Black Unitarian Universalists. No matter where you're located, if you identify as a Black Unitarian Universalist, there are organizations and activities and resources for you. And also they're committed to justice making and liberation through our faith. As a liberal religion, Unitarian Universalism has something unique to offer the Black community, and BLUE is dedicated to getting that word out and to doing that work. One of the important activities or initiatives that has come out of BLUE in the past couple of years is a movement to create or to add an 8th principle to our 7 principles of Unitarian Universalism. It's the 8th Principle Project. And this is the wording that they have proposed for this 8th principle. So I'll read it to you a couple times because there's a lot to it. The proposed 8th principle reads like this: we, the member congregations of Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountability, dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and in our institutions. Let me read that again. We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and in our institutions. So it recognizes that this work is a journey. It doesn't expect all of us to go from point A to point B right now. We all start at different points when it comes to recognizing the impact and the privilege that we have experienced as white people. Privilege really has to, it simply means that I never have to think about the fact that I'm white. I've never had to think about that as I'm driving down the road and I get pulled over by a police officer. I don't have to think about how the fact that I'm white might affect the interaction at that traffic stop. I've never had to think about going into a store and have security follow me simply because I'm white. I've never had to wonder if I'm going to get into a college or be able to interview for a job just because I'm white. That's white privilege, and it's something that we need to acknowledge, not apologize for. This isn't saying it's bad to be white. It's simply saying let's be aware of our color, our whiteness, the privilege we've had, and the challenges that people who are not white have because of the fact that they're not white. So we're moving towards this journey as spiritual wholeness. This is a spiritual endeavor. It's not just something we check off because it's the right thing to do socially. It's not something where we put up a Black Lives Matter banner and say that we've done our job as a congregation. This is a spiritual activity that takes a long time. And the whole goal of this is to create a diverse and multicultural, beloved community by our actions, and our actions then will dismantle racism eventually. That is the ultimate goal. But not just racism, but other oppressions in ourselves personally, in our congregation here at UUFCC, in our town, in our county, in our state, and in the entire nation. This is a massive statement. So what's happening with this is that the UUA has appointed a commission who is not only looking at this, but they're looking at the wording of all 7 principles, wondering, is this a good time to enhance the wording or to change some wording that might be unclear or problematic? And then I believe the goal is to bring a recommendation to General Assembly in 2022 to adopt the 8th principle, possibly not in its current form, but maybe with some tweaking or editing of the wording. So I believe the action on that will be taken at the 2022 General Assembly. Now, some of our congregations have already adopted the 8th principle in its current wording independently of what the UUA is doing. Some congregations are saying, we're not going to wait for General Assembly to tell us to do this. We're going to adopt it now, and we're going to start that work today by making this part of our incorporated principles for Unitarian Universalism. That is something we could, in fact, have a conversation about as a congregation if some of you would like to help move that forward. Part of this work also comes from a report from a group called the Commission on Institutional Change that was put together a few years ago. I talked about this one Sunday in July after General Assembly. They created a very lengthy report that actually was published in the form of a book. And there are many, many, many suggestions that this commission has, not just for the UUA as a denomination or as a corporate head, but also for individual congregations. But our denomination has to model change from the very top. There have been some hiring practices that, if they haven't been racist, have the very least been tone deaf to multiculturalism and the challenges of hiring people who are simply not white. And so that was a big part of what the Commission on Institutional Change was looking into. And we will hear more about that because I'm part of a group of ministers who work in smaller congregations like ours to think about how we can apply and implement some of the suggestions of the Commission on Institutional Change. We're meeting once a month to have those conversations. There's also another group that's fairly new called the Diverse and Revolutionary Unitarian Universalist Multicultural Ministries. So what is that acronym? Diverse, Revolutionary, Unitarian, Universalist, Multicultural Ministries. DRUM, D-R-U-U-M-M. So they go by DRUM. And the entire purpose of DRUM is to emphasize multiculturalism, to help us understand that we live in a multicultural culture, to increase and assimilate multicultural activities in our congregation and in our denomination. They have an awful lot of efforts and projects going on that we can learn from and be a part of. So I would encourage you to look up DRUM, D-R-U-U-M-M, Diverse and Revolutionary Unitarian Universalist Multicultural Ministries. And a big part of what's happening fairly recently with these movements is the inclusion of indigenous peoples. We know that in the United States that there were many, many tribes of Native Americans, indigenous peoples who lived here in relative peace before Europeans ever came to take over and conquer the land and to look for precious materials to send back to their kings and rulers in Europe. Because of that invasion, because of that work, hundreds of thousands of indigenous people were killed, either by disease or by war, or simply by having their culture stamped out. They were relocated. As we know, we've heard stories in our history books about the Trail of Tears and many other efforts. We know the United States government, often with the help of Unitarian Universalist leaders, made the Indian people assimilate into white Western culture, to learn our language of English, to take the religion of Christianity, to dress in Western dress, because for some reason as white people, we thought we knew what was best for them. And so there are many efforts now to try and correct some of that by recognizing the fact that we live on land here in Charlotte County that did not originally belong to the Spaniards or to white Europeans, but it belonged to indigenous tribes, and what that means and how do we honor them and how do we remember them. And there are still some of these tribes that are fighting today where they are for their own rights. And so it's important to learn about that and to be aware. To help with this awareness, they create a monthly newsletter that's called Catalyst. It highlights issues regarding race and ethnicity from the journey of building intentional anti-racist and multicultural communities. Catalyst is a publication of Multicultural Ministries. It's one of the offices within the UUA. And that team empowers leaders and congregations to replace barriers to participation in our movement with ever widening circles of solidarity and mutual respect. Some of the things they encourage us to look at are our bylaws, and we actually have an ad hoc committee right now going through every single line in our own bylaws to see what might need updated or revised, what's out of date, what's not there that maybe should be. And part of that work means that we're looking at the bylaws and asking the question, how might this be decentering whiteness if we change the wording or eliminate something or add something? Just as a couple of examples, it's been pointed out that Robert's Rules of Order was created by white Europeans in order to make sure that the majority voice of those in charge was heard and the minority voices were suppressed. Is there a better way to run meetings instead of using Robert's Rules of Order? Is there a better way to not just allow or encourage minority voices to be heard, but to ensure that every single voice is heard in our congregation as we value the democratic process? Membership is another point of emphasis that people are asking questions about. Membership in and of itself is exclusionary. You are either a member or you're not a member. You're in the club or you're outside of the club. In what ways does membership perpetuate white supremacy culture? And is that something that we should take a look at maybe eliminating and creating an organization that has no membership? There are other religions and other denominations that have done that. And of course, we've certainly heard about the Black Lives Matter movement. We have a Black Lives Matter banner that I know was part of conversation for years before I came here. But we have a new one that was put up this summer. It hasn't been touched, it hasn't been bothered, and it's hanging outside of our building here. Maybe you've heard about the defund the police movement that really became popular this summer. People see that in different ways. Some say it's about actually eliminating policing totally and leaving this into the hands of the community. Some say it's about moving around funds so that we can train social workers and people who are experts in de-escalating violence or de-escalating problems, and not totally getting rid of the police, but moving those funds around and refunding community resources. But the whole idea is the same, that in Black communities, communities for people of color, that policing has become much too violent. And the fact that people of color are shot, are murdered, are arrested, are incarcerated at much higher rates than are whites means that there's something inherently wrong with the system. And this is part of what BLM and Defund the Police is trying to raise attention to. And we have a lot of Unitarian Universalist leaders involved in those various campaigns. There's also a whole lot of work done around the idea of inclusion in various different ways. I know that UUSCC years ago became a welcoming congregation. It's something that we actually need to renew. The work of becoming a welcoming congregation is a little bit different now than it was a few years ago. So I would hope that some of you would say, I'd love to be part of the group that renews our welcoming congregation status, because that is something that we need to do. Certainly inclusion moves us towards thinking about how welcoming we are and accepting we are of folks who identify as part of the LGBTQ+ community. There's so much that goes along with that. And I believe our congregation has done a pretty good job of that through the years, maybe more than pretty good, maybe even better compared to a lot of other UU congregations. Again, not just from the standpoint of saying you're welcome here, but of incorporating and including folks from that community into our leadership, into our committees. We see and hear a lot, even from the pulpit and the chancel here, different aspects of welcoming. We have speakers who represent the LGBTQ experience, and we participate a lot in activities. For example, right now, I am on the planning committee for the Peace River Pride Fest that's coming up in January, trying to figure out how we can make that as safe and effective as possible in the midst of a pandemic. So we're doing a lot of work with that. But part of what that means that is a little bit uncomfortable to some folks is thinking about gender pronouns. This is a lot of work that's being done in Unitarian Universalism and in our culture. In fact, if you look at my Zoom window right now, down at the bottom, it doesn't say Chancellor, it doesn't say UUSCC. I think it says Rev Dan. And then in parentheses, it says he, him, his, something like that. The idea is to say that not everybody is comfortable with binary gender pronouns. Some people prefer to use he, him pronouns who may present as female in your opinion. Some people may prefer to use their as a pronoun, or us, or no pronouns at all and simply go by their name. And in order to try to learn more about that and respect that, this is some of the work that we need to do. When we gather back together in person, I'm going to encourage us to change our name tags to put our own gender pronouns on our name tags. Why is that important? And it has really nothing to do with people confusing you with your preferred pronouns, but it has to do with being welcoming. It says to people who come in who like to use alternative pronouns that we understand where they're coming from, that we recognize the fact that people's pronouns are important to them, and we want to be welcoming and say, you use the pronouns that you're most comfortable with. And we share our pronouns so that others know that we are doing that work. It's not about me. I identify as male, he, him, his, and that's okay. But I want you to feel comfortable with whatever pronouns you prefer to use. That is part of being inclusive. And that is a big work that's happening in Unitarian Universalism right now. Another work along that line is in what's called ableist language and accessibility issues. Ableist language is the idea that people with different types of physical or emotional mobility challenges or thought challenges, sometimes we use language that is offensive to them. It's about raising awareness. If some of you have been around long enough, you might remember the project that was first of all known as Stand on the Side of Love, and now it's simply called Side with Love. Why did that change? It's because of ableist language. Stand on the side of love is ableist because some people can't stand. Either they're physically unable to because they have weak legs, some people have no legs at all. But by changing it from stand on the side of love to side with love, it shows sensitivity to these issues. So words such as see and hear and stand and walk are sometimes ableist language. And it doesn't mean we have to eliminate those words from our vocabulary. It means becoming more aware of the fact that those words can hurt people who do not have those abilities. So it's simply raising those issues. But it's also looking at our physical facilities. We've had a lot of conversation with the board and with other folks about our front door. It's not handicapped or wheelchair accessible. People with mobility issue have a hard time coming in our front door. Our bathrooms are not very ADA compliant, and they can create issues because of space. The hallway going to our bathrooms isn't very handicap accessible. Our chancel here that I'm standing on, someone that has mobility challenges and certainly somebody in a wheelchair cannot come up here. There's two simple steps, which seems easy for me. I can navigate those steps quite easily. But many people with mobility challenges that don't have to be in a wheelchair, they can't get up here. It limits the way that people look at how we care about them. So those accessibility issues matter. We can talk about immigration justice, which is a big emphasis of the UUA right now. We know that we have issues that we're trying to work on and to protest, such as family separation, deportations of people who are simply coming here trying to live a happy life. We have the DACA and the Dreamer situation, and they never know what's happening in this particular administration. They need to have a path to citizenship. And then what's happening right now with asylum seekers, forcing them to stay in their country of origin until their case is heard here in America, that is unprecedented. It's unfair and it's inhumane. So all of these issues, we have different groups working on when it comes to immigration justice, including an incredibly wonderful immigration justice committee here at UFCC that I would encourage you to be a part of and learn more about if you haven't already done so. The fact is, and I'm sure that you're not going to be surprised to hear this in Unitarian Universalism, not everybody likes all of these efforts. A couple of years ago at General Assembly, when it was in Spokane, Washington, there was a small booklet passed out by some folks that they call themselves the Gadflies. The book was called the Gadfly Papers. And it raised some issues about changes happening in Unitarian Universalism that these folks didn't like, they were concerned about. These folks happen to be entirely white, almost entirely male, and almost entirely in their 60s and older. They don't like the direction that Unitarian Universalism is going in. They are afraid that their voices are being silenced so that other voices can be heard. They're afraid that we're being way too concerned about Black lives, about Indigenous people's lives, about the disabled, and about so many other issues. They feel excluded. It's not the same faith as it was 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. The response to that by the Unitarian Universalist Association and by the UU Ministers Association is to say, you're absolutely right. It's not the same as it used to be, and that's a good thing. Some of those folks have chosen on their own to leave Unitarian Universalism. A couple of them have been disfellowshipped by the Ministers Association because they've pushed this so far that it's been inappropriate and it's been hurtful. They throw around phrases like neoliberalism or critical race theory to accuse the UUA of being inappropriate and going too far with the changes that are happening. There's also a concern about reproductive justice with the appointment of Susan Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court, which will probably happen tomorrow officially. There's a concern that Roe versus Wade will be overturned and that outlaws will become, abortions will become, if not outlawed, at least difficult to get. So we have many Unitarian Universalist congregations who are stockpiling Plan B pills. They're having people go to all the drugstores in their community, buy all of the Plan B pills they can, and hold them in a safe in an office in their congregations in case they need to pass them out to folks who might need them if a woman's right to choose is compromised by this new Supreme Court. We also know there's a lot of work being done in environmental justice, trying to get cleaner air, cleaner water, renewable energy, and so many other efforts that come along with that. This is where our green sanctuary efforts come from, and recycling, and our worm bins, and it goes on and on and on. So as you can tell, there's a lot happening in Unitarian Universalism, and you're going to hear a lot more about these and other issues in the coming months. As amazing and inclusive as we are here at UUFCC, we still have a lot of work to do. And I can't think of a better group of people that I want to do this work with and embrace the opportunities and challenges of our UU faith moving forward than those of you here that are part of us at UUFCC. It's going to be a journey that will challenge us, that will push us, that will encourage us, and will change us, and change can be scary. Change is coming because it always does. As I wrap up the message, I want to share a video that Samara found and shared with me. It's called Change is Coming. So enjoy this video, and then we'll come back and do our closing words.
Change is coming. What do we need to imagine? Change is coming. What do we need to imagine? 'Cause I know from brokenness there's hope. I know from brokenness there's hope. Change is coming. What do we need to imagine? Change is coming. What do we need to imagine to be prepared? I know I'm scared to be prepared. I know I'm scared, and I know from brokenness there's whole. I know from brokenness there's whole. Change is coming. What do we need to imagine to be change is coming? I know. What do we need to imagine? 'Cause I know. I know. From brokenness there's whole. I know. Yes, from brokenness there's whole. And I know. Change is coming. What do we need to imagine? The change is coming. What do we need to imagine? Change is coming. What do we need to imagine? Change is coming. What do we need to imagine? 'Cause I know from brokenness there's whole. I know from brokenness there's whole. Change is coming. What do we need to imagine? Change is coming. What do we need to imagine? Change is coming. I know. From brokenness there's whole. I know. Change is coming. I know. From brokenness there's whole.
Change is coming. What do we need to imagine? What does this change mean for us at UUFCC, and how will we be different? Ultimately, the outcome will be that UUFCC will be an even better, more inclusive, diverse, and welcoming community. And that is our ultimate goal. Amen and blessed be. Samara has our closing words.
So there on the left in that music video was Dr. Glenn Thomas Rideout, whose words I'm using for both opening. Music and expression of the ineffable is essential to spirituality and worship, and for the closing. We're not going to win any debate about Black and Brown people feeling oppressed in this spiritual home, because it's not a conversation that can be expressed in English. It has to be dealt with through things like tears and emotional intelligence and processing and maturity. And it has to look like UU worship having a standard practice of lamentation or contrition or asking each other for forgiveness. This means admitting that your brain cannot figure out everything. Musicians need to be giving a shot at impressing upon the people how important it is to live and feel our way into these sorts of solutions.
Thank you, Samara, and thank you for doing so much work this week to find just the right words for this service. And now we extinguish the chalice, but not the light of hope, the fire of commitment, or the warmth of community. May those ideals shine in our lives and warm our hearts until we are together again. Before we do our benediction, I just want to remind you that if you are interested in learning more about UUFCC, in November, we are going to have a couple of Who Are You classes, November 8th and November 15th. On November 8th, we'll talk about the history and theology of Unitarian Universalism. And on the 15th, we'll talk about this congregation, our own history, how we're governed, and how to become a member if that's something you might be interested in. If that's something that you would like to be a part of and be added to the list of folks for that, it'll be right after the service on those 2 Sundays. Please send me an email, minister@uufcc.org, and we will certainly make sure that you are included. And now let's share our community benediction, Go Now in Peace, as we sing together.
Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the Spirit of us surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the Spirit of love surround you everywhere,
Thank you all. And now I'll remind you to be a blessing to everyone that you meet, wherever you're out at the grocery store or at the pharmacy, wherever you need to go. Be a blessing to those that are sharing your house right now during this very difficult time when you don't get to go out and do many things socially. And be a blessing to yourself. Extend yourself grace, cut yourself a break, do things that make you smile and bring you energy. Just be a blessing. Thank you all for being here. It's great to see you. And if you'll hang out for a few moments, you'll get instructions as we go into our social hour, and you can go into some chat rooms. Thank you for being here. It's great to see everyone.